It'd be one of those things, if I tried to paint the eyes properly, it would end up like this. Vengeance. No, just no. What's happening, my fellow geeks and geekettes? Welcome to a brand new episode of Chris's Custom Collectibles, and I am in desperate need of a haircut, but that's neither here nor there. In today's episode, we are going to be pimping out the McFarlane Toys, the Batman statue based off the Jim Lee artwork. Now, before you guys get your typing fingers ready, I am fully aware that there is a regular version of this with the black suit and actual skin tone within the cowl. The reason being I have this is because I pre-ordered it and they hadn't even announced the regular version yet, and then it finally came out and I thought, well, fuck. But anyway, the show must go on. We're still gonna pimp this guy out, give him a repaint, and make it look as realistic as possible. And I'm really happy that this turned out because we've also got this beautiful gargoyle setting here that he rests on, but now that we have a bigger scale to work with, we have more detail. So I'll just come in close and give you guys a good look. Again, it's based off Jim Lee's artwork that he drew of Robert Pattinson as Batman a couple of years ago with all that beautiful red shading. It actually is a beautiful looking figure. I'm kind of tempted just to buy one regularly and display it because it is quite stunning to look at and I dig the concept. But look at all this beautiful detail on the armor. Now, what I really want to nail with this custom collectible is the hints of grey in his suit. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I pimped out the 7-inch version and the response has been crazy amazing with that. So a massive thank you to you guys. But with this one, I really want to hone in on the details. And because we are dealing with a bigger scale, it's going to be a lot more easier. Now, in terms of the cape, I am gonna keep the cape. This thing is beautiful and so flexible, so much so that you can just flex it on his leg like that. And how cool does that look? It just looks like it's blowing in the wind and it just looks badass. And I think once it's repainted and we do all the shading and dirtying up and weathering and stuff like that, it's just gonna look a treat. Now, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I am shocking at painting eyes in full scale, let alone small scale. So what I'm gonna do is do a bit of a cheeky and just give him the white lenses this time around. I actually have seen iterations and fan art of Pattinson with the lenses covering up those beautiful baby blues of his, and it actually looks really badass. So I'm gonna try it with this figure. Again, it'd be one of those things, if I tried to paint the eyes properly, it would end up like this. Vengeance. No, just no. So the first step is we're gonna take the cape off, and I'm gonna take it off as carefully as possible because I don't wanna exactly slice away any parts because we are gonna be utilizing it at the end and gluing it back down on the figure. But once the cape's off, we're gonna be priming the entire piece, the entire 3 pieces. We've got the cape, the figure, and the stand that he pegs onto. For that, we're just gonna be using a flat gray primer from Rust-Oleum, and then we're gonna go in with a matte black also from Rust-Oleum. So with that being said, let's get to it. Okay, so remember how I said we're going to start with a Rust-Oleum flat grey primer and then move on to the flat black? I had second thoughts because I thought the plastic that this thing is made of, especially the cape, if I lay down an enamel-based spray, it's going to make it very tacky, very sticky because the enamel reacts with the plastic. So I did my research and I found this stuff. This is an acrylic-based primer and it's matte black, so we don't have to worry about putting the grey primer down. We can just lay this thing straight down and then get to doing the detailing work. So I got this stuff for $17.95 at the Gamesman here in Penshurst, just about 20 minutes from my place. If you haven't been, and if you're in Sydney, go to the Gamesman. They have like an actual game museum there with all the consoles throughout all the decades, Ataris, 64s, PS1s, everything, Sega. It's amazing. So yeah, we're gonna give this stuff a crack on the full body, the cape, and the gargoyle stand. So hopefully it shouldn't make it tacky at all. Let's give it a crack. I gotta say, that matte black spray paint worked amazing. Great coverage, gets in all the details, and just leaves such a beautiful finish. It's like, you can almost leave him like that and call it a day, but we're not gonna do that. So one thing I really want to crack in on with this figure is the detail. Because we're working with something that's a bigger scale as opposed to the 7-inch figure, we have all this beautiful detail here. Like we can do the gold clip here on the bicep. We've got more detail in the chest emblem knife. And another thing, the color scheme. So I really want to narrow in on the subtle grays that are on the chest, the arms, some parts of the shoulders, and of course the pants and around the back. So I wish I could say, you know, oh, I came up with this method, but no, I completely stumbled upon this method by accident. We're going to be using oil colors to achieve the subtle gray. So we're going to be starting out with the yellow ochre, and then we're going in with the Payne's gray. Is it ochre, whatever. So we're going to subtly apply this yellow on all the parts that are going to be gray. Now, if we were to go in straight away with this gray, it would turn out exactly like this because there's no lighter color palette underneath to bring out the gray. It's a stark matte black, and this just will not work. It will not show its true color right there. But this and this together work well to create the subtle gray that is on the screen you suit, and also the subtle hints of yellow around the edges help with weathering. So it's kind of like a 2-in-1, so to speak. Now, once we've done that, once we've applied this and applied this, we're then going to go in with our airbrush and just apply some Liquitex matte varnish. I'm obsessed with this stuff. It's acrylic based, so it's not going to make this figure sticky or any other figure sticky when you're spraying on a injection mold plastic or a flexible plastic. No need to water it down. It's already watered down and good to go to be fed through an airbrush. And that way, when we airbrush seal it with the matte varnishes, it just makes sure that the oil color isn't going to rub off on our fingers when we go to work on anything else, and then when we go to paint the faceplate, etc. Alrighty, like I said, we're going to apply this, and then these. Let's get to it. That was a Simpsons reference if anyone got it. Okay, so what I'm doing now is grabbing some watered down white student acrylic at the base of this disposable cup and wiping away the excess on this paper towel and just going in around the crevices, around the plating of the armor, and just trying to emulate that almost dusty effect on the suit. From what I've seen, it's like a mixture of light gray, dusty white, yellows, and even a bit of brown thrown in there. And also this just separates the plating of the suit. So you can be sporadic with it, but also, you know, try and hit the hard edges and openings and stuff like that, and where there'd be general wear and tear. Again, this is like a subtle addition to the figure, but it helps. It helps just bring a bit more depth and weathering to the figure. Mostly like in the creases here of the ab plate and on the edges of the chest plate. Again, it's not an overly big step, but it definitely helps. Like you can just tell it already has a difference right there from when we originally did the yellow and gray oil colors. Oh, you thought I wouldn't be doing any shitty commentary, but here we are. So I'm getting that same white acrylic and I'm taking it over the gaiters and the gloves and the belt accessories, and that just highlights everything. Also highlighting the stitching on the gaiters, the creases in the gloves, and also the accessories on the belt. Just makes them a little bit more dustier and really highlights the creases and the detail of the sculpt of the accessories. So next up, we're going to go in for some detailing work, and for that we're going to be using a Lemire pewter. We're also going to be using this liquid metallic finish. This is a substitute for rub and buff gold, but in more of a liquid form. We also have a Lemire metallic rust. This is for some accents on the chest emblem knife, as well as some good old silver leaf rub and buff. So the Lemire pewter, also I'm going to try out the metallic silver. We're going to be doing on all the belt pieces, the triangle here, the carabiner triangle, the buttons, stuff like that, all the accessories on the belt, as well as the clips here on the drop holster, not to mention the gauntlets, and also doing some dry brushing on the gauntlets with the silver leaf rub and buff. Whereas this liquid gold leaf stuff we're going to be using on these clips here on the biceps. Usually I would be using my darker gold Lemire, but it's at the workshop at the moment, so this is a perfect substitute. I'm actually really happy with how the white dry brushing turned out on the boots with all the stitching. It does really highlight them beautifully because there is white stitching on his boot spats. I didn't even realize it until looking close up at the actual costume, so that was a win. I am going to be doing some mud effects on his boots, but I'm going to wait till I permanently fix him onto the gargoyle base. But obviously we've got to do some washes and weathering on that. I am going to be incorporating some clear cast resin, some dirt and everything to really gunk up around his boots like it's raining, and the top of this building is just caked with dirt and rain and stuff like that. But before that, it's time for a montage of doing the bat chest emblem. We're going to be doing the belt, the gauntlets, the drop holster, and anything else that requires these puppies right here. Alrighty, it's now time to move on to painting the mouth plate. So I've gone ahead and taped everything up, covered the rest of the body up. I'm just using a delicate tape this time around just so we don't rip any of the paint off. Not that it would because it's been sealed, but just having delicate tape really does help. So we're going to be airbrushing the base layer of flesh on. So the base color is an unbleached titanium. There's a student acrylic, and it's just a perfect starting base. Even though it isn't an actual named flesh color, it just is the perfect starting base, especially for Pattinson's face because he is quite pale. Now, because we're feeding this through an airbrush, I mixed it in with a airbrush medium. So let's get that to focus. So usually the ratio is 50-50, but because this is an actual paint, it was probably about 60% this stuff and 40% this stuff. And the good thing is you do not, shit. And the good thing is that you don't lose any color, or it doesn't exactly water it down. The way this stuff is designed is it can make it more watery, but you're not gonna actually lose the consistency of the coloring of it. So we're gonna feed it through the airbrush. We're gonna do the base coat on this, and I'm gonna take all the tape off, and then we're gonna go to work doing a series of washes, painting the lips, and just trying to add a little bit of 5 o'clock shadow. See how we go. I have been following the tutorial from Sideshow Collectables with the gentleman that is painting that Superman head. That has immensely come in handy in terms of like washes with yellows, reds, and even blues. So this is gonna be a bit of fun. I'm looking forward to it. So with that being said, it's airbrushing time. Okay, so applying this first coat of very light flesh tone, I realized we had gone way too light and way too pale. So then I grabbed a darker skin tone, mixed it with the airbrush medium and sprayed it on, and it actually worked well with the lighter shade. It kind of brought a bit of depth to it, especially in his cheekbones, those sucked in Pattinson cheekbones. It kind of added a bit of shading, if that makes sense. I'm just very carefully taking off the masking tape. Now I did go back in with an acrylic black by hand around the edge of the cowl opening, just where any flesh had bled onto the actual cowl, and that was pretty straightforward. Now in terms of detailing the face, we're going to be using a red acrylic wash, a yellow acrylic wash, some watered down brown shoe polish, and some watered down black shoe polish. So this method, apart from the shoe polish, comes from the Sideshow Collectables tutorial where that gentleman is painting the Superman face sculpt. He did a wash of yellow and then a wash of blue. He also did a wash of red, but I'm foregoing the blue and just doing the yellow and red. Now the red is pretty stark, but keep in mind it is not soaking into the skin. It's just helping highlight everything, kind of emulate the reds that we have sitting under our skin. And then just grabbing that watered down brown shoe polish, and that is really going to go in and start the detailing work and highlighting work, especially around the lips and the cheekbones, and vice versa when we grab our black shoe polish watered down as well. And you can see already the difference it has with shading and highlighting. And this essentially just will be the final touch apart from the lips. And then just emulating the 5 o'clock shadow and then going back in with a brown shoe polish unwatered down for the lips, which really turned out a treat. Now in terms of the cape, I'm just giving it a quick little dust with baby powder, just going to help with the aging process. I want this looking like old weathered, creaked leather. And then I'm going to grab a burnt sienna, which is a student acrylic as always, watered down. Not too much watering down because I really want it to still show up when it's fully dried and cured on the cape. And this is essentially to go around the scallops, the edges and stuff like that to make it look like mud, much in the vein of Batfleck. But also I'm running it up the folds and creases of the sculpt of the cape, and it's just going to help highlight everything. I mean, look at that. It's subtle, but it just breaks up all that beautiful detail of the cape. I loved it. It turned out so well and just adds a nice hint of subtle weathering. Now in terms of the base, very straightforward. Just black shoe polish, unwatered down, and just brushing it in all that beautiful detail of this gargoyle themed base. And then once we've got full coverage, we're just going to go in with a paper towel and wipe away the excess, and make sure to really get into that detail of the gargoyle because he does have a open mouth, which can be a bit tricky to get into. And there we go, just wiping away and removing the excess, and look at all that beautiful detail, all that like cobblestone looking detail, and on the gargoyle too. Perfect. And just also it just has those nice hints of shading and whatnot. Now I did put some mottled balsa wood by the pegs of his feet because he was starting to slant a bit. I don't know if mine was just a defect or whatnot, but I glued 2 bits of balsa hobby wood under the pegs where his feet are, and that kind of propped him back up. So I got one at the front and one at the back there. But we're now ready to use our clear embedding resin. This is going to emulate wet rain and mix in some model stones. Now usually I get dirt from the driveway, but from all the torrential rain, the driveway dirt is disgusting at the moment, and the water would react with the resin. So we're pouring our resin in, and we're a few drops of our hardener, mixing that up, and again just starting to put it on the base and then mix in those little pebbles. It's mostly used for model railway work and stuff like that, but I really want it caked under those boots of his, like he's just trundling along a rooftop with all the rain, and it's just built up all this dirty, chunky gravel under his boot, and he's like just coursing through this stuff. And leave it overnight, and it looked an absolute treat. I was very happy with the end result. Like I mentioned, I am only doing the lenses for his eyes. I'm not painting actual eyes because I still can't paint actual eyes and do it justice compared to the mouth plate. And I'm just going to be using a Liquitex titanium white acrylic. Very straightforward, but this was a very touch and go process, and I'll explain in the following shot. Okay, so that was very tricky and very touch and go. So what I found, if you paint the full eye lens, he looks very buggy and it just doesn't look right. It looks almost goofy. So what you can do is grab a fine pen, this is a 0.2 pen, and go back in around the perimeter until it closes in to how you want it. I want it as if he's kind of squinting or glaring with those lenses, and especially when you taper him down like that, it just has that really cool look to it. So I am stoked with how the lenses look, and also the mouth plate. I really am happy with how those washes turned out. And along with the brown shoe polish on the lips, it just looks really, really good. Granted, he probably looks a little bit more tanned than usual Robert Pattinson. Again, this is kind of just a little bit of free-flowing creativity with this statue, but I really dig it. And all that's left to do now is glue the cape back on, and we're ready for the final reveal. There we have it, guys. I'm absolutely stoked with how this guy turned out, especially that mouth plate. All that shading just really works a treat. Even though the regular version of this one does exist, I highly recommend giving this one a crack with the Jim Lee inspired red and black paint application. It really is a fun custom collectible to do. Even though I definitely want to hone in on my eye painting skills, I really think the lenses do work. I love the Pattinson suit with lenses. But with that being said, wherever you are in the world, please have yourselves an absolute cracker of a day. I hope you're well, hope you're happy, be merry, be silly, and until next time, geeks, please always remember, cosplayers do it best.